Course is entitled Patient Self-Evaluation of Phase 1 TMD Treatment Progress, Course 1. There are several, it's a core part of the Institute. It is the primary duty of the assistant. The assistant does this on every single patient. This is critical, and the assistant needs to know what's done when and how to respond to problems. And this is our report card from the patient. So this is a critical course and should be, each one of the sections should be looked at over and over, learn it, see patients, come back and look at it again. The Atlanta TMD Institute was founded in 2018 to educate dental and medical professionals in TMD, which we're doing right now with you, to develop knowledge of temporal mandibular disorders. It's woefully inadequate right now, and to successfully treat patients suffering with TMD. We are a final place for practitioners to send failures to. We treat patients who failed with other dentists, or sometimes dentists and physicians and ENTs will refer their patients to us directly. Welcome to the patient evaluation of Phase 1 TMD Treatment Progress course. This course is focused on a form that the TMD assistant has the TMD patient fill out at every single TMD visit. So often the assistant will come up and say, "Does she have to fill this out?" And I'm like, "Are you crazy? I told you every single visit." The purpose of the form is interesting. It's to provide outstanding TMD care, and I mean really outstanding, and documenting, this means writing down for court purposes, the actual patient experience. In other words, how did the patient really do? And it's in writing. So if we ever review later, a year or two, the actual patient experience, what actually happened, is going to be shown in these forms that you are supervising. So you should understand the form, and you should take it seriously, because it is the primary way that we protect ourselves from lawsuits, and also how we respond to patient needs. See, I'm very unusual. I actually want a report card. You're not going to believe this. Most dentists put appliances in to patients and never see them again, or never evaluate them. They may do one post-op, but they never really go back and see if their appliances worked. I'm not lying to you. This is actually true. And I'm not going to allow that. I want success. I want to know how my patients are doing. And this form actually tells me so that I can respond to problems. So here's a copy of the form. You'll notice the title is Patient Evaluation of Phase 1 TMD Treatment Progress. It has a lot of information. There's several sections. The very top, and I might include a line under referring doctor name, because the patient name, date, and referring doctor name is put in by the person doing the pre-appointment account review the day before. And then the part that the patient fills out is, how are you doing? Are you happy with your progress? Please describe how you feel. Is there anything that Dr. Podolsky should know? And then we have the patient sign, and then you sign. You have to sign. You're a witness. And all the stuff in the bottom for office use only is your area. It's your area. You're a part of the office. So remember that. This is printed out the day before for every TMD visit, every soft guard visit, every hard guard visit, every FARA visit. It's always printed out. Don't ask me if you should or should not. Print it out, have it ready. Just always assume it's needed, and you'll do fantastic. So this particular form is the patient's feeling, what the patient is primarily writing. The patient's reporting to me. It's my report card. It tells me specifically how my patient's doing. In other words, instead of me asking and finding out verbally, it's in writing. And there's a reason. It's so that I can go back and prove that I responded to every problem that the patient presented to me. Because a lot of patients later, they have short memories. We had a soft guard patient, not a TMD patient, get a soft guard, and then like a year and a half later after she left our office, call vehemently, in other words, negatively, stating that this stupid soft guard didn't help her. This is a year and a half later, and wanted a full refund a year and a half later. And she was doing well during treatment, and so it's just very frustrating. And I want to protect myself. I also want to document, in other words, write down what actually happened during all the visits and show the court that I am a good doctor, that I respond to patient needs. And even more than a court, it's like I really should take care of my patients, shouldn't I? So if they make a comment about some problem, I should address that problem. And by writing things down, I'm not going to miss the problems because I have to read this thing. You aren't going to miss anything. You have to sign it. You signed it as reviewing it, right? You signed it. So you're part of my team. So this is the patient's own self-evaluation of the TMD treatment being provided by the Atlanta TMD Institute. Remember, it's not Dr. Podolsky, it's the Institute, because we have several doctors, and as we grow, there'll be many different doctors doing TMD treatment. It's the patient's evaluation. It's their feeling of how well the treatment is going. A phase 1 TMD treatment is diagnostic repositioning of a patient's mandible and temporomandibular joint. Diagnostic means, hey, we're trying to find out. We're kind of messing with the patient. Diagnosis is to find out what the problem is. So when we put the appliance in, the appliance is telling us if we're doing good. See, we're diagnosing. So if you give someone medicine and they get better, the medicine did it. You gave the right medicine for the right condition. And we're diagnosing the TMD problem with the appliance. You got it? So the appliance is not technically mentally forever and ever. It's not. It is a tool that the dentist uses to find out where the correct bite position is, the joint position. And I say, if you build it, they will come. So if I put the jaw joints in their correct anatomical positions where God meant them to be, they will heal and the patient will get much better. So phase 1 TMD treatment is the diagnostic repositioning of a patient's mandible and temporomandibular joint into an ideal jaw joint position. So when we say ideal, it's where I believe ideal is for this patient. I'm guessing it's an educated professional guess after 40 years of care. Actually, yeah, is it 40 years? I've been married 40 years. I keep on thinking that. No, after 39 years as of 2019, and I know generally where I have to put people. So treatment progress is the week-to-week improvement that the patients experience. Progress means, how are you progressing in college? Well, I've got to my sophomore year. Well, wonderful. Looks like you're moving along. You're progressing well. The patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment progress is legally records and documents the patient's experience. In other words, we can go back and see how the patient is doing 2 years from now by looking at the forms. So when the patient forgets how they were doing, we can show the patient what they're doing, how they're doing. It's just crazy. We get a lot of crazy patients sometimes. We do. And I love my patients, and I never believe they're crazy. I never do. I always try to address every problem they have, but once in a while, they do get crazy, and they say things that are nuts. And I can go over that later, but this patient evaluation of phase 1 treatment progress shows how they are improving in court, in other words, later. So, I mean, it seems obvious that the patient's name should be on the form because this is a patient's form. The patient is evaluating this form, right? The patient is giving us their opinion. The patient is giving us their feedback. This is the patient's form. So it must be documented in block printing. I mean, it has to be block printing because, a judge, a lawyer, another dentist who's an expert against me has to see that this was filled out by this patient, right? So this is a legal form that is signed by the patient and witnessed by the attending dental assistant and signed by the dental assistant. So it is now official. Patient cannot say that he or she did not fill this out. And if they say, I never filled that out, that's not correct. The assistant can say, no. I reviewed it with you. I witnessed it and signed showing that I did review it with you and you did fill this out. I can swear in court. So it's a serious business and it should be done expertly by the TMD assistant. This is your official legal duty. If the form falls out of the patient's chart, the patient's name is on the form and can easily be returned to this patient's chart. The form belongs to this patient, not someone else. The patient's name is written in block print, block, not scribble, not cursive, block, because it needs to be pulled again and reviewed again very clearly. When you're writing out legal stuff, it should be very clear and extremely important that the attending dental assistant, you, make sure this is all appropriate. This is your job. Date. This is the date of the visit. And you do not throw these things away. A lot of people, oh my God, they throw them away. So we created a form the day before, and the patient didn't show up, and they throw it away. Wait a minute. Doesn't that document that the patient didn't show up? So you keep forms in the patient chart if they didn't show up, and you put on there with big giant red letters, no show, no call, or same day cancel, or TCC, telephone confirmation cancellation, showing that this patient did not show up. And it gives the court an idea also of how poo-poo this person might be, that they're not coming to their appointments, and they're just not giving us feedback, and perhaps they're not wearing their appliances. So do not throw these away. Everyone, even blank ones, are kept in the patient chart. So a new patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment progress is filled out by the patient at every TMD visit. I'm going to repeat that so you won't come back and say something stupid to me. Every TMD visit. Do not forget this. And be sure that the TMD patient always fills out this form at every single visit. The patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment progress forms are all organized chronologically, that means by date, going backward to the first form with the most recent form at the top. So I see today's form, and then behind that was last visit's form, and behind that was a visit before, and they're stapled together so I can see them. Very important. And I can look back and see how the patient was doing. So the patient makes a complaint and says, well, I made this complaint over and over again. And I go back and I look and I don't see it anywhere else. Patient's lying. It's a nutty patient. And if, however, it was there, oh my God, I didn't take note of it. I better really focus on this and take care of this problem because the patient's really concerned. So the last visit is below today's visit, so the doctor can compare the last visit with today's visit. Reading the forms gives the doctor a feeling about how the patient's treatment is progressing. The patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment is really important, and it helps us keep organized. It helps us understand what's going on with our patients. So you never ever throw away any patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment forms. You don't throw them away. It's crazy. Don't do that. If the patient doesn't show up for a previously scheduled TMD appointment and you're there that day and she doesn't show up, you keep the form, and you, the TMD assistant, write what happened on the form. No show, no call in big red letters. If the patient never showed up, write no show, no call in big red letters. Keep the form on the chart with all the other completed patient self-evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment forms. We keep them in chronological order, and they're all inside the patient's chart. It's extremely important that you keep it, because if a lawyer gets a hold of this and sees that she's saying, doctor's great, very happy, very happy, very happy, no show, no call, very happy, no show, no call, very happy, same day cancel, that he'll see, 1, she said he's doing a great job. 2, my client is canceling all the time. And he will see this, and it will really become very apparent to him, because you got these big red letters on each one of the forms saying same day cancel, no show, no call, on each one. So you don't throw them away even if the patient doesn't show up. So if the patient called and same day canceled, write same day cancel in big red letters and keep the form in the chart with all the other forms chronologically oriented. If the patient telephone confirmation cancellation, if they did one, write in there also TCC, telephone confirmation cancellation. Write all of the words so the lawyer will see what it is. Write same day cancel, 3 words, so the lawyer can see what it says. Write no show, no call in big red letters so the lawyer can see what it said. If you put an abbreviation in SDC, he may not know what that means. He thinks his client is the greatest person in the world, and then he looks at SDC, what's that? I don't know what it is. He goes to the next form, right? Well, he's doing his review. He should see that this patient is a canceller. So never throw away any of these forms. They're used in court, and Lord, they have been used in court before. And this was a suggestion by a close mentor, Dr. Gelb, that patients can turn on you terribly even a year or 2 after they've left and they love you. And this has happened to me too. And then so you show these forms to the attorney, and it says while the patient was at the office, she said, Dr. P is the greatest guy in the world every time, happy, happy, happy. And then 2 years later, or a year and a half later, they're suing you. And they can't get away with it because they wrote out all of these forms saying I'm a great guy, and they're very happy. And almost everybody is very happy except for workman's compensation and accident cases. I got up in the morning, drank my coffee, drove through the stupid 400 traffic, and fought my way through to see patients. So when a patient insults me completely and doesn't show up, doesn't call, I'm mad. That's like, you didn't show up for the wedding. I am mad. I really am. And I don't want you saying, well, it's no big deal, Dr. Podolsky. Don't you worry. I don't want to charge them, and I don't want to be bad to them. I want to be really nice to everyone when they're abusing me. If you have a child that's doing something bad, you have to correct that child. And that's true also with patients. All right, so if this was a no-show, no-call, you, the TMD assistant, not the receptionist, must call the patient and reschedule this appointment. The thing is this, patient abandonment is serious. You might say, we didn't do it, but the judge will say, show me proof. If you don't record proof, it didn't happen. Even if you're innocent, all the time, innocent people get incarcerated and sent to jail. Why? Because they couldn't prove they were not guilty. So here, this no-show, no-call, you, the TMD assistant, must call the patient, reschedule this appointment, be absolutely certain that we didn't abandon the patient, because it will be a problem. We've had patients disappear for 4 to 5 months, and they're over their 6-month warranty period. We give all free treatment for 6 months, and then they get flaming mad at me, crazy mad, saying, I paid you all this money and you're not going to take care of me. I'm saying, well, you didn't show up for 4 or 5 months. You disappeared. So you always document in the patient notes, in the Dentrix charting module. So you right-click on the patient's appointment, go to the charting module, then you click on notes at the bottom. You write, listen, you got to memorize this. Patient failed to show up for her scheduled appointment. I called, she did not answer. I left a message requiring her to call me personally immediately. And you write this whole thing. You have to memorize this. Patient failed to show up for her scheduled appointment. I called and she did not answer. I left a message requiring her to call me immediately. Memorize it. And then you also write the same message shown below on the patient evaluation of phase 1 treatment progress form, right? So you're putting big giant letters, N, S, and C. No, not letters. Remember, I said you're not supposed to do that. Here I am going back on what I'm saying. Write out no show, no call. Patient failed to show up for her scheduled appointment. I called and she did not answer. I left a message requiring her to call me personally immediately. And this is kept in the patient chart. So it shows the attorney that this person doesn't even bother to show up, right? And she's not returning messages, and all these bad things are happening. And it's not good for the patient. It doesn't look good for the patient. It's not good for the patient. That's why we're doing it. Because when they try to sue us, we're going to have protection because you are excellent. You document everything. The unfortunate thing is that we have to supervise patients because patients often got into trouble because they didn't take care of themselves. So now you're the big mama, you are watching over these patients, and one, you want them to be healthy and happy. That's your desire. And number two, you don't want them suing us later and then saying that we are incompetent and need to be reprimanded. Now, in this particular slide, it says inexperienced receptionists who do stupid things, and let me tell you, it is stupid. Stupid is as stupid does. Will often take a call from a TMD patient and then cancel this patient's appointment with no concern, behind your back, without your knowledge, without ever even telling you anything. Then this inexperienced receptionist never documents anything. Patient never calls back, and I'm always yelling at receptionists to call patients, and they don't. And now we never call that patient, and then 6 months later, she has an incredible headache, gets put in the hospital. There's an attorney there. He says, "That's terrible. Have you ever been treated by anybody?" "Yeah, Dr. Podolsky abandoned me. I paid $4,000 for him to treat me, and he abandoned me." And the lawyer says, "Well, let's get this guy because, listen, he shouldn't practice dentistry in Georgia. You know that when a person abandons a baby behind a dumpster, they're going to jail. It's a felony. They're going away. We're going to take this dentist out for you. We're going to make a lot of money. We're going to take care of you so you'll be healthy. I'm a good lawyer, and I'm going to make sure you get taken care of." So canceling patient appointments and not telling you anything, well, that's very unprofessional conduct. And this other person, this other staff member, has to be reprimanded by a professional assistant who is you, who cares about the TMD patients, because guess what? This receptionist will continue to do this, and they will abandon patients. And of course, they'll say, "I didn't abandon a patient. She canceled." Where's the proof? Patient's going to say something else later. Nothing was documented. Plus, I care about my patients. I don't want them to suffer, and I know they're going to. And I want to jump on it and get their butts back in. That's my responsibility. But I have all these people working around me who do not have the same commitment. That morning, you agreed to supervise this patient's TMD visit. So it's 7:45, you have a meeting, and you put your initials on that TMD case visit, and you placed your name on the Dentrix appointment schedule as being the dental assistant who is going to get this ministered to this patient, right? You prepared everything needed for your patient, and then you expected that this patient was going to arrive, right? This is the agreement. There's a bond. I love you. You love me. I will do this for you. You do this for me. This patient said, I will make this appointment, and I will come to this appointment. And then they didn't. Dental receptionists can commit malpractice. They can. And they don't think so. "Well, it isn't my fault she canceled." Well, yes, it is, because you didn't document anything. You didn't ask her to come back. You let her cancel without rescheduling. So dental receptionists can commit malpractice by abandoning TMD patients. They don't show up, she doesn't call. 2 weeks later, she doesn't call. A week later, she doesn't call. I can't get her to call. Watch. You'll go out there and watch them. Party time at 4 o'clock. They don't call patients. And now we got this serious problem. Whose word does the judge take? Your word or our word, right? Your word or the patient's word, right? And if there's no documents, patient says, if you're competent and a good dentist and have a good staff, they're going to document everything and show me that you care about your patients and that this problem is all due to the patient. But if you got nothing there and you're saying you did things and you didn't, there's no proof that you did them, and you're just saying that to get out of your malpractice case. So we want excellent documentation. So God forgive them, these receptionists, for they know not what they do. It's like when Christ was dying, he looked up and said, God forgive them, please. They're killing me. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And this is what this unprofessional, inexperienced receptionist is canceling appointments without rescheduling and not telling anybody about it. That is extremely harmful to the practice, to the patient, to everyone. And you're going to not believe it. This receptionist is going to believe that she did the right thing. Well, the person canceled. I didn't do it. I take no responsibility in this patient care. I don't have to. They canceled. They can cancel. They can do what they want. I believe they can do what they want. They can also sue you later, Dr. P. They can do that. They can do what they want. That's craziness. Craziness. So please don't let incompetent, inexperienced receptionists mess up our dental practice and harm our patients. Here's a situation that is extremely important. Unfortunately, most front office people just don't understand the seriousness. It's like a young child handling a loaded gun. The child doesn't know. So a same-day cancel is when someone calls within 24 hours. So for example, if the appointment's at 11 on Thursday, if they call at 4 on Wednesday, that's a same-day cancel. It's under 24 hours. But the key here is without rescheduling. They do not reschedule. We have got into some serious legal issues with patients in the past few years about this situation, and the staff do not understand it is their responsibility to track and minister to patients like parents. So a parent wouldn't just let their kid run wild most of the time. So there could be something called patient abandonment. When you abandon a baby behind the hospital or in a dumpster, these things have happened. And one of the biggest fears that dentists have is that the patient will be abandoned or feel abandoned. So let's say someone cancels and an incompetent receptionist says, no problem, when would you like to reschedule? Oh, you're not going to. She thinks that because the patient told her to cancel, that's okay, and the patient will call back. Except that later in court, the patient will claim unreasonably, unethically, unlogically, that the actual receptionist was the one who abandoned her. Where's the proof? So we have these problems. One is if they don't reschedule, they may not come back. So they got 26 weeks of free care. They cancel. They forget to call back for 3 months, and it's over their treatment time. Now you tell them it's $180 per visit. They flip out. They go crazy. And in a sense, they have the right to, because you abandoned the baby. You forgot. You said, hey, bitch, you canceled. Your fault. No. If this is your child, you wouldn't slap the child and put him in a closet for the rest of his life. You wouldn't do that. And that's what this is. So when a person doesn't reschedule, you need to make sure that they are followed up upon. That makes sense. And it's your responsibility. So this is one of the greatest fears that a dentist has, that his patient will be abandoned. And even if it just looks that you're abandoned, you're in trouble. So it doesn't have to be real abandonment. So you say, well, no, we said we would give her an appointment, but she didn't show up. So the dental receptionist will blame the patient for canceling. The dental receptionist is going to blame the patient for canceling. It is her fault. She canceled and didn't reschedule. Not my fault. But in court, the court's going to say something different. The court will blame the doctor for allowing his patient to be abandoned. So the patient doesn't reschedule. The receptionist thinks this is okay. She never calls the patient back. Patient never calls us. then in court the judge is going to say, listen, you're charging this person $4,000 or $5,000 and she doesn't show up and you don't even bother to call her. What kind of doctor are you? And I've got to look at this judge and say, well, my receptionist felt like that the patient was responsible and that it's the patient's fault. And then the judge is going to say, well, don't you really care? If you really cared and your child's missing, are you not going to look for your child? And I said, well, no, my office doesn't do that. The girls in my office party at 4 o'clock and they don't call patients. Sorry. So there would be a severe reprimand of the dentist if there is no legal documentation of the patient's cancellation. You need to put in the patient's notes, patient canceled, said she would not reschedule even after encouragement. And you put it in the charting module, right, under patient notes. Why? Because one, if we do get later sued or some sort of major challenge, we have proof that the patient canceled and didn't reschedule. Okay, good. That keeps us really out of court, maybe, but wouldn't it be better if this was your child and you were in charge of the child's braces and the kid doesn't go back to the orthodontist for 3 to 6 months? Are you a bad parent? You are a bad parent if your child doesn't go back for the ortho. It's true. So could you please take care of these patients? So you have to have legal documentation in the patient's progress notes. And there needs to be some documentation saying that you gave advice to the patient that, hey, listen, this is not okay. You should reschedule because if you don't call back, you can, not get taken care of, right? So there will be a severe reprimand of the dentist if there is no legal documentation of the patient's cancellation and documented advice given to the patient by the staff member, you, taking the call for the patient to make a new appointment. Mrs. Jones, really, you should make another appointment because if you don't, it's possible you're going to kind of get lost and then you'll end up not being taken care of. Let's get the appointment on the books, even if you have to cancel it later. Then you put it in. You say, well, she says, no, I can't do it. And you go to the charting module, click into the notes, and put in there, patient same day canceled, did not wish to reschedule, encourage the patient to make an appointment so we would follow up. Got it? Some of these patients never call back, and they never come in for what's called vitally needed TMD care. The abandoned patient then claims that the doctor abandoned them and refused them treatment. He refused to take care of me. I paid him, and he did not take care of me. And it's true, I didn't take care of him. But whose fault is it? It is really both faults. Legally, it's her fault, but ethically, morally, to God, it's our fault. We should follow up. If you've got a kid, again, that needs braces, and you start the braces and you don't bring the kid in for 3 months, you're a bad parent. The Atlanta TMD Institute and Dr. Podolsky are, it's a referral practice. A referral practice. What does that mean? All of our patients are sent to us by other doctors. We are caring for these patients, but they are other doctor patients. It is a sacred duty both to the patient and to the referring doctor. The referring doctor is asking for help, and we are providing that help. So the name of the referring doctor is written at the top of every patient evaluation of phase 1 treatment progress the day before the pre-appointment, during the pre-appointment account review. This is done by a staff member the day before. That's why it's so important to have this ready, so we're assigning someone to do it. This form should be filled out the day before, not the day of. If, for some crazy reason, the doctor has to ask for one of these forms, it means someone really screwed up, and there needs to be a correction, and you, the dental assistant, must correct it. It can't ever happen again. Once you see how important this form is, you're not going to let this happen. So the date written on the form is the date of the TMD appointment. The information is written in the day before by the staff member doing the pre-appointment account review, and this is done from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. the day before. The name of the referring doctor in block print is shown in the Dentrix family file referred area. So when you go into Dentrix and you pull up the patient's family file, you see on the right-hand side, the referred area, the doctor's name should be in there. If it's not, we have a screw up. I'm like, I want to scream because incompetence seems to be acceptable. People think that doing a stupid job, a terrible job is okay. Hey, doc, I really care about these patients. I want to love them, but I've killed 5 of them, but I love them. It's like, wait a minute. You want a competent person taking care of you, not a person that just loves you. Hopefully, you love the patients and you're very competent and do a wonderful wonderful treatment, wonderful service. If the name of the referring doctor is not on the form, someone seriously screwed up. And the name of the referring doctor must be found and written on this form immediately. It needs to be put into the Dentrix family file, and the office manager really needs to have a discussion with the person who did the review because they didn't do their job correctly. Oh my God, we're trying to do a good job, right? Aren't we? You got to take a team approach. It's really important. You're part of the team. You need to work with other team members, make sure other team members do their jobs. So the middle section is where the patient has the opportunity and is invited or inviting them to do things. They can't say we didn't invite them. They can't say they didn't, we didn't ask. And the patient will later say, well, I asked this stuff and you never answered me. And then we look back in there and there's nothing on the forms. So one of the first questions we asked is, well, how are you doing? It's really important. So the next area of the patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment progress asks the patient, how are you doing? The question is asked to see how the treatment is going and if the doctor needs to make any changes to this patient's treatment to improve this patient's care. Now you non-verbally, without saying anything, bring this completed form to the doctor. And the doctor looks at it non-verbally without saying anything, because often it's from another patient, and he says, wait a minute, I need to get in there because there's problems. I need to use my brain to solve this person's problem. I need to make changes to this patient's treatment that are appropriate and good for the patient. But he won't know that unless the patient makes a comment. So if the patient is doing well, the dentist is doing well. So this form is it also is a kind of test grade or report card for the dentist. Hey, you're a great dentist. I can say I'm a great dentist if I get a bunch of wonderful report cards, like all my patients are doing well, right? I can say that legally, and I can also show it legally because I've got actual proof of wonderful report cards, wonderful patient evaluation of phase 1 TMD treatment progress forms, all showing wonderful care. If the patient is not doing well, changes have to be made to improve the results of the treatment, and this gives the patient the opportunity to say so. So they can't ever say, you didn't take care of me well. And I think that's critical. Plus, I am forcing them to tell me how I am doing and whether I can improve their treatment. Now, sometimes patients have low expectations and they don't write things. Don't encourage them. Please don't do that. Well, don't you have any complaints? Please write your complaints down. No, 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 no. This is the patient's feeling, not yours. You don't write anything on these forms, and you do not encourage people to put negative things on there. No, you do not. That's not allowed. So it is the patient's evaluation, self-evaluation of how they are doing. So in this section, we ask the patient to circle one of the 5 choices to show us what's going on. And it's a quick, simple thing. They don't have to write, they just circle. So the responses are much better, better, same, worse, and much worse. Oh my God. So this sets the tone of this whole form, okay? It sets the tone. It tells me whether I have to get more involved. When you're showing me the form, if I see much worse, I'm going to come in there more quickly. I'm going to use my brain more quickly. I'm going to engage this patient more quickly. I have more problems. I've got to figure something out. If they're doing better, then my treatment protocol, step by step by step, is working by itself. And I figured it out, and this patient is following beautifully. So the attending dental assistant reads with their eyeballs this section to be sure that the patient circled one of the responses. They have to circle one of the responses. If they haven't, please say, hey, gee, you forgot to circle one of these responses. Could you please do it? And don't encourage, don't suggest anything. So, well, if you're doing better, you should circle much better. Don't do that. Patient's going to say it was your response. It has to be the patient's response. So if the patient did not circle response, the attending dental assistant asks the patient, could you please circle one of these? You got to read the form. If you bring this form to me and it's not circled, I'm sorry. You're an idiot. I'm sorry. Jeez Louise. Oh my God. I said it. That's how I feel. Because in the third grade, I understood that I had to fill out certain things and circle certain things. It's third grade, maybe even first grade. You have to read the form. And if you haven't read the form, I know you haven't read the form if you haven't looked to see if there's a circle around one of these. It just means you're sleeping. You shouldn't be doing TMD because you're really not a good dental assistant. You don't care. You say, well, doctor, I just forgot to look to see if she signed something or circled something. I'm saying, well, no, it means you didn't care because you weren't concerned. You didn't look, and you should look. That means you're professional. That means I can depend on you. That means the patient can depend on you. Really, read these forms. So the next section is a different question, slightly different, and it says, are you happy with your progress so far? Circle one. So a person can be having a bad day and say, I'm much worse, but they're happy with what I am doing. So they'll circle, yes, very much happy with what you're doing. I'm very much happy with my progress, but I understand today is just a crazy day and I'm having some trouble. So this has to be circled also because it tells me, that it's different. One, how are you doing today? Well, today I'm bad, but I understand that I get better and I get worse, but I'm very happy with the treatment provided to me, and I know I'm probably going to do well given some time. So this one is, are you happy with what Dr. P has been doing with you or what the Institute's been providing? And there's 6 responses. Yes, very much. Yes. Yes, pretty much. I'm not sure. No, I don't feel better. No, I feel worse. You're making me worse. This area also tells the dentist how the patient is doing. These responses are used to determine how much attention out of the normal protocol that the dentist has to provide. So if the patient's not getting better, I might have to make changes that I usually don't make for most patients. But I got to figure this out based upon the report card I'm getting, based upon the patient's situation, and I learned this situation. Isn't it amazing that most dentists put in appliances and never follow up? Here I am, every single visit, I'm concerned with how the patients are doing. I don't know, it's just, I am trying to provide the most, very best care in the world. I am not letting mistakes happen, and I'm getting the feedback from patients. You are too. Just be proud of what we're doing. Seriously, this form invites patients to criticize me, and I do it for the sake of the patient and for me. I want to get better. I want to find out why every little bad thing is happening to my patient and get rid of it, because this is my patient and I want them better. Now, this next section asks the patient to describe or write out how they feel. So if they say, I'm doing much worse, I want to know, what does that mean? What does I'm doing much worse mean? What's going on? Very often I'll say, where is the pain? Point with your right forefinger where the pain is. I want to know so I can determine, is this related to my treatment or unrelated to my treatment? Because sometimes people get colds and other problems that have nothing to do with the treatment, or it could be a neck problem that's acting up. It could be when we're putting the MORA in, the mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance, the head is trying to get back into its place above the shoulders. And as it goes back, the neck was messed up and it's hard. So now the patient starts having a lot of neck problems or cervical problems. And then that's a different thing. We might refer it to physical therapy earlier. I don't know. Whatever is presenting itself, I want to know. So if they say, I'm doing worse, and they're not happy with the treatment, they say, I'm not happy with the treatment. I want a description, a written description. Tell me what is the problem. Tell me what I have to correct. All right? I want to see what's bothering the patient. So this section invites the patient to write down how the patient feels and what might be bothering the patient. It gives the patient the opportunity to make comments, complain, or maybe even give thanks for what we're doing. That happens a lot too. But I want it documented. I want to be able to see with my eyeballs in writing, what do I have to correct? Because sometimes they'll say something to me and they never record it, and they say they said it, and there's no proof that they said it, and I'll say, you never said it. And they'll say, yes, I did. And I'll say, well, let's go back over the forms where you were given opportunity to document this and you never did. Well, that doesn't hold up in court. It doesn't. They were given the opportunity. They never described what they have a problem with. I'm sorry. I can't fix things that they don't tell me about. All right? I just can't. But you will see that we do have some crazy patients. They're rare. I mean, they really are rare. But there are some crazy patients, and just nuts, and we can get into that later. All right, so this section is a little different, and it asks, is there anything that Dr. Podolsky should know? And it might be, patients often will put some other things in there. Oh yeah, I had some women problems, or oh yeah, I went in for a medical checkup recently, or anything else that they think might be important. It may or may not be related to the treatment, but it is something they may think is important. And someone will say, oh yeah, I just had cancer. And I mean, things that should be documented, anything that the patient thinks I should know, they put it in there. And some of these things might change the course of their treatment, but I need to know, right? So this section invites the patient to write down any concerns. The patient may be more prone to write something in this area if the patient is shy about complaining. So they may not want to put in a comment above, but then they might write something in here that they feel is less harshly criticizing the Dr. Podolsky, but they'll put it in so I'll catch it and I'll be able to see, because some patients are just not willing to put down negative things, which is wonderful, except I don't know that they're getting better or worse. They're always, some people just praise you to hell. And, there's something called placebo. It's when you give someone a sugar pill and they get better. And the reason they get better is because the doctor believes they're going to get better, and they believe that the doctor believes, and then their mind, their soul will heal them. So is it the treatment that's getting them better, or is it the appliance that's getting them better? What's getting them better? So again, is there anything that Dr. Podolsky should know? Now, we have the patient sign this because it is a legal document. Additionally, we want legal proof that the patient wrote this out. They could say, I didn't write it. The dental assistant wrote it. Oh my God. God forbid that happens. God forbid you ever touch anything or write anything in for the patient. You're not allowed to do that. I'm just going to blow up. My head's going to explode because you're just creating problems. So the patient signs it, and they sign it showing that they wrote it out. This is their writing, their concerns. This is what they shared with me. And if it's nothing is there, they didn't share it with me. So signing it is legal proof. So the patient is required to sign the patient self-evaluation phase 1 TMD treatment progress to prove this form was filled out by the patient, not you, not the receptionist, by the patient. And be sure that dumb butt receptionists are not writing on these forms, because they'll do, people jump in and say, oh yeah, I can do this. We just had a person recently incorrectly do the insurance, and they started talking to patients about a patient particularly about parts of the insurance we never talked to anybody about, but she felt it was necessary. Well, I want to let you know you've got a deductible, you idiot, and you know what? If you come in here, we're going to charge you. Let me tell you, we're going to charge you. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. I almost pee-peed in my pants when I heard this. It's like, why are you talking about negative things? Guess what? The insurance is what it is. It is what it is. So when the patient comes in, we didn't make those rules. And we certainly don't want to bring negative things up. We should say positive things. Isn't it wonderful you got insurance? They're going to help you. That's fantastic. But if the patient didn't ask about it, why the hell would you start talking about negative? Well, we don't want you to come in because if you come in, we're going to deductible you. And they may not pay anything. Oh my God. So I don't know. I get really nuts. And you got to really watch these front office people. This is a witnessed document. When you sign a mortgage as a witness, when you sign an affidavit, which is a document that says something is true, there has to be a witness. Legal documents are witnessed by what they call notary publics who put their stamp on it. This is a witness saying that the patient signed it. The patient can later say, I never wrote that. I never signed that. God forbid the dental staff member plays with this form, writes anything on the form. Don't. You're not allowed to. Oh my God. I will sometimes go and see people scribbling on the form saying, oh, I just wanted to clarify something. I said, get your fingers off of the form. You are not allowed to. So the staff signature has to do with a witness. So all legal documents must be witnessed to prove that the patient signed the form. When the patient later denies signing the form, the dental assistant can testify under oath on the Bible that the patient is lying. The dental assistant should actually watch the patient sign the document and remain in the operatory the entire time the patient's in the office. Now, sometimes you don't see it, but you know that was signed because the blank form was given to the patient. Then you would sign it. You probably ask the patient, is that your signature? But criminal patients will steal these forms from the chart while the incompetent dental assistant leaves the operatory against the policy. You're supposed to stay in the operatory. I'm going to start swearing. You think you're smarter than me. You think oh, I'm so brilliant. No, you're not. You're told to stay in the operatory. We've had people steal things. I had one patient steal all of his x-rays, and then he tried to sue me. I didn't have any x-rays. Oh my God, no way to go to court. God was good. God bless me. We had sent this patient to a root canal specialist for a simple root canal, and the x-rays were with the x-rays of the root canal were with the endodontist, and I had a way to defend myself. Later, we found from another dentist that this patient brought all my x-rays into his office. That is theft. It's actually against the law in Georgia. But, people are going to try to do what they think, and they don't often follow the law, and they're going to try to get money. Whenever money is involved, oh my God, or revenge, they're going to try to screw people. And that's humans, not just patients. So unfortunately, this stealing things out of the chart has happened in our office, and that's why we require you to stay in the operatory. You should have everything necessary for the dental visit in the operatory so you don't have to leave. The only time you leave, unfortunately, even that short time, is to go get the doc, to show the doc this form. But you don't keep any of the items in front of the patient where they can just grab them. They need to kind of be behind the patient so the patient can't just easily take things. Now the bottom part of the form is labeled for office use only. Do not write here. And that's instructions to the patient. You are writing there because you're the dental assistant. So the bottom section of the patient evaluation of TMD treatment progress, or I should say phase 1 TMD treatment progress, is filled out by the attending dental assistant, not the patient. You're going to be collecting a lot of very important legal information, and you're going to fill this out. The whole bottom section helps keep track of the patient's progress, helps you keep track, and how many weeks this patient has been treated by Dr. P. We always take range of motion measurements of patients at every TMD visit. We also do it if we're doing a soft guard therapy. We always do it if any kind of TMD appliance is inserted. So it would be totally crazy if you came up to me and say, should I take range of motion measurements? And I'm like, what are you, nuts? We do that every single time. It's very easy to take range of motion measurements with a millimeter ruler, and you should do it at every visit, and you do it immediately. Seat the patient, do TMD measurements, do range of motion measurements. Seat the patient, do TMD measurements. Seat the soft guard patient, do TMD measurements. Seat the POHD patient, do TMD measurements, right? Whenever they've got a soft guard, whenever they got a hard guard, do TMD measurements immediately. Put them on a yellow sticky and have them ready for the doctor to look at. If something moves correctly, it's usually healthy, all right? Or it's on its way to healing. So the attending dental assistant takes mandibular, this is lower jaw, mandibular range of motion measurements immediately. See that word immediately? After the TMD patient is seated. So if I walk in and you're looking through the patient self-evaluation form and all the comments, and you don't take the range of motion measurements, you're out of whack. You're not doing what you're supposed to. Immediately means it's the first thing you do when you seat them, right? You tell them to take their appliance out, you measure the range of motion, you record them on a yellow sticky, and then you have them put the hard guard immediately back in their mouth. So when doctor comes, doctor sees the patient with the hard guard in. The word immediately means right then, with no waiting. Take the measurements. Oh my God. I'm repeating it over and over again. The measurements are written on a yellow stick up and placed on the top right-hand corner of the patient evaluation of Phase 1 treatment progress form. Please take the measurements. The dentist confirms the measurements, and the attending dental assistant then transfers these measurements to the range of motion measurements area in blue pen. We write in pen, not pencil. You don't sign your mortgage in pencil. You don't sign a car loan in pencil. It can be erased, right? This is a legal document, needs to be done in pen, but you don't write on the actual form. You wait until the doctor verifies. Literally just yesterday, yesterday was a crazy day with one particular assistant. The measurements were like, she said she can't move right and left. So I came in and I said, that doesn't look right. So I had her laid her back and held her jaw a little bit. She went 15 millimeters to the left and 15 millimeters to the right. And what was this? It was crazy. And I've had to reprimand this particular assistant because a week before she was writing on the final form, even though she really could not take measurements well. These measurements are critical in evaluating the success of treatment. So I look at them every single time. It's the first thing I look at when I come into the room. How am I progressing? So normal measurements are 8 to 10 on right and left movements, 40 to 50 on opening. And protrusive can be anywhere from 2 to 8, 2 to 10. But I know that if it's moving correctly, it's probably healing. If it moves correctly, it's probably on its way to becoming healthy. So I want to see those good measurements. Doctors know that the number one problem with patients is patient compliance. What does that mean, to comply? It means to do what you're instructed to do. How often do your friends say, well, I'll get some extra antibiotic pills, and the doctor instructed them to take the whole prescription, and there are so many reasons why you have to do that, but the patient didn't. It's very common. With narcotics, it's a big deal in the opiate epidemic right now. People get 16 Percocets, Schedule 2, very hard narcotics, and they only use 6. They got 10 in the closet and the kid grabs them. There's just a lot of problems. Patients lie, and then they don't get better and they get mad when in fact they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. Remember, the instructions are 24/7 on the MORA, the mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance. You are a detective. You don't ask the question, have you been wearing your MORA? Have you been wearing your hard guard? Don't do that. Wait a minute. She walks in and she sits down and she done got her appliance in her mouth. Oh my God, that is a problem. This person's not wearing their appliance. How can they get better? So if you have a broken leg and you're taking your cast off and you're damaging the leg, then you yell at the doctor? No, but people do this. So the question is, wearing more at presentation, yes or no? So you see the patient, before you take the range of motion measurements, you look in the mouth, is the MORA in the mouth, or does she got it in her pocketbook? TMD patients who are in active care under Dr. Podolsky are required to wear their MORAs 24/7. That's all the time except for eating. That's important. And if they don't have it in, they're not complying, they're bad patients. Sorry, I don't care how sweet and wonderful that patient seems to be. They're not doing it the instructions. They're not doing it the way they have to. And then later, honestly, later, I swear, they're going to get mad. Of course, if you don't take your medicine, you're not going to get better. But then you blame the doctor, and you don't tell the doctor, well, I didn't take your medicine, but you did it to me. Right? If the patient walks into the operatory without the MORA in her mouth, the patient is not complying with Dr. Podolsky's instructions by definition. And you need to be the detective. You don't say, do you got it? Please put the MORA in your mouth. Oh my God. No, this means she's not wearing it. That's terrible. If you break your leg and only wear the cast at night or part-time, your leg's not going to heal. This is a legal activity. Patients are nuts. I have one particular patient who came in and had a lot of dramatic stuff, and she says, well, I don't have to exercise, I walk around. And I'm saying, well, you're supposed to do a 1-hour exercise, extremely important. And she comes back in 4 to 6 weeks later, yeah, I'm exercising, I'm getting in a half hour to 45 minutes. I'm like, so wait a minute, I asked you to do an hour of private time, just walking comfortably and freeing your mind of a lot of burdens. And she's not going to do it. She's not. And she's a very dramatic woman. And she brings her mother in all the time. And everything's dramatic with her. But she's going to come after me later. And she will. I'm just predicting it. And, people do not comply. They don't want to get healthy. Wait a minute. I'm saying something to you might not believe. They come in. They pay me $4,000. And then when we tell them what their problem is, they don't want to do it. They don't want to take care of it. Then they blame the doctor. So you need to help me stay out of court. You need to help me identify when patients are non-compliant. That way I can defend myself. And they say, this is a rotten dentist. He's rotten. All he cares about is money. And you look in and you look at these forms, and it says patient's not wearing an appliance, patient's not wearing an appliance, right? If the patient later complains and wants all her money back, which a person is doing this right now, or brings Dr. Podolsky to court, and I have one person do that, you have provided proof that the treatment did not go as well as planned because the patient failed to comply with the doctor's orders. It was the patient that caused this problem. And fortunately, the one that I got into trouble with, guess what? I won. But I'm just telling you, this is craziness. So please protect me. Is the patient wearing? So you see the patient, you look at the mouth before you do the range of motion. Is she wearing it? If not, she's not wearing it, you circle no. If when she came in, she wasn't, now you watch her, watch. If she puts it in her mouth, no, that's a no. She's not wearing it. She put it in her mouth before she saw you because she knows you're going to look. And you shouldn't say anything. You shouldn't. So she'll start understanding, hey, that assistant's going to see if I'm wearing it or not. So I'm just going to plop it in right before I get seated. And that way I'll fool her. Don't get fooled. So is the patient wearing the mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance, the MORA, hard guard, when they walk in? Don't ask any questions. Just look with your eyeballs. Say yes or no. One of the most depressing things is when you're trying to make people healthy and they just refuse. They don't do anything you tell them to do, and they don't do things the way they're supposed to do. And then they also blame you And this is the way of human beings. You know, in ancient times, they'd slay you, they'd kill you, just they want your land, or they'd do bad things to you, and people still do bad things. So if you circle no at wearing the Mora at presentation, this sucks. This is a patient who doesn't want to get better. They say they want to, so what they say to you and what they feel is different. So a lot of times you'll see they make bad reports when they're not wearing the appliance. Whose fault is that? It's the patient's fault. But we need to be like good parents and make children take their medicines. And so once we see no, it helps us in court. But we also want the patient to wear the appliance. The patient is paying a great deal of money to get better, but is not wearing the mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance as instructed by Dr. Podolsky. They're not complying. Of course, she's not going to get better. She's not allowing her temporomandibular joints to heal by being protected by the appliance. A patient that does not take her medicine cannot accuse her doctor of being an idiot. Please don't let these patients go there, and they will. I'm going to tell you something. Don't ever believe that anybody is not going to sue us. Oh, Mrs. Jones, she would never sue us. She's such a nice patient. No, people get crazy, and you don't know who's going to be the one who's going to be terrible. So always think of every patient as being wanting to sue you and bring you to court. Why am I saying this? Love everyone, but protect yourself at every time because you just don't know. That's when you start slipping and you don't document noncompliance, and then later the patient accuses you of being bad. Documenting the patient's failure to comply with the instructions is very important, since many of these patients later will accuse Dr. Podolsky of incompetence. And get this, they'll go back and tell their doctors, their referring doctors, that I'm a jerk when they're not wearing the appliance. I don't know what to say to you. This is how life is. People get married, and within 7 years, 50% are divorced, and they hate each other. They're going to kill each other. So you're falling in love with this person, but we know that there's a 50% chance in 7 years you're going to want them dead. So you don't know what's going to happen with this particular patient in 7 years. You don't know in a year what's going to happen. So always document stuff. Always write in the Dentrix TMD patient notes, patient, get this, I'm giving you something to type in. Patient has not complied with the 24/7 wear as ordered by Dr. Podolsky. Had a discussion with the patient about the importance of the 24/7 wear. You're going to put this in the notes. You're going to put it in the charting module. You're going to talk to the doctor about this. If he doesn't do it, you do it, but you make sure it happens because you are basically the person who's going to assist him in staying out of court and assist him in taking good responsibility for the patient. Now, when you talk to the patient, you don't want to degrade the patient. You just want to bring it to the patient's attention. They can't get better if they don't wear their appliance. And then you say, well, why weren't you wearing your appliance? And then they'll tell you, and then you come up with ways to help them wear it. But you got to document it every time. One of the most interesting things for me is when I walk into the operatory and the master casts are not hand articulated with the therapeutic bite, construction bite. And you've got to do that because when you look over at the model, you can see how the models fit together, right? And that tells you, the assistant, how does the therapeutic bite go together? How does it go together? Because you have to look with your eyeballs in the patient. You ask the patient, bite. Listen, please listen to me. This is critical. So you took your range of motion measurements. You put the appliance in after the measurements. Then you say bite. And they should go bang right into their therapeutic bite. How do you know what their therapeutic bite is? You look over at the models that you put out on the counter behind the patient. If you don't have the models out, you don't know what the therapeutic bite is. I don't understand this. So when I walk into the laboratory and there's no models out, I know that the assistant that I'm working with doesn't understand the process. And this is not the greatest of assistants because he or she is not really spending any time learning these techniques. And these are advanced techniques. These are things that that have to be done with precision. We're like an aircraft mechanic. You know, we're excellent. We're way above an automobile mechanic because anything goes wrong with an airplane, people die right then. So again, this says knows the therapeutic bite position. So they have to bite down, and it's either a yes or no. It's not a maybe. It's either they go right into it or they hit and slide into it. If they hit and slide, that's a no. Got it? So if they hit, slide, go into it, that doesn't mean they know it. That means they don't know it. So they have to bite and go right into it. That's a yes. After checking to be sure that the patient is wearing her mora and then taking mandibular range of motion measurements, the dental assistant has the patient put the mora back into her mouth. So patient seated, you look to see if she's wearing a mora. Yes, good. No, bad. Then you take the range of motion measurements. You put them on a yellow sticky. Are they good? Are they bad? 40 to 50 is good for opening. 8 to 10, good on right and left lateral. Okay, good. Now have the patient put the mora back in her mouth. Watch her do it, because you can't do it. She's not wearing it. See, because if she's been wearing it the past week or two, she can put it in and out without even looking because she's been wearing it. All right? So then have her put it back in her mouth. Then the dental assistant watches the patient put the appliance back in her mouth to see if the patient does this easily and quickly. If she can't do it easily and quickly, she's not wearing it, right? We know this. You can put a note. Patient doesn't even know how to put the appliance in. Probably has not been wearing it. This means that the patient has been, if the patient can put the appliance in quickly and out quickly, easily, without even looking, the patient's been wearing the appliance, right? Finally, the dental assistant asks the patient to bite down in her therapeutic bite without a mirror. See, because exercise 1, if you go back and look, is training her to go into that bite automatically. Has she been doing the exercise 1? And if she doesn't, she needs a mirror. She hasn't been doing the exercises. So, right? Finally, the dental assistant asks the patient to bite down in a therapeutic bite without a mirror to see if the patient bites straight down into the therapeutic bite that the patient created for this patient. How do you know what it is? The models are right there. You should look at the models before the patient's seated, right? And study it to see if you know the therapeutic bite. Then look to see if she knows it, right? If the patient bites immediately into the appliance at the therapeutic bite, circle yes. If the patient hits somewhere and slides into the bite or doesn't know where the bite is, circle no. Now, no, a lot of these people that have no, they can't open well. So they will have openings, which should be 40 to 50, of anywhere between 25 and 40. Why? Because they're stressing their muscles are getting tight because they've been grinding on the appliance since they're not going into the therapeutic bite. They haven't been doing exercise 1, and now you've got to reiterate, get them to do exercise 1 over and over and over again until they learn it. What I've noticed is kids do it right away. It takes them a week. Older people don't seem to know where they are. They don't have a good perception of where their jaw is, and they tend to get into trouble, and they can't learn the therapeutic bite well. So they need your help, and you need to be right there. If they don't know the therapeutic bite, you pull out exercise 1, which you normally give at the DHD appointment, have her read it, get a mirror, and do over and over again, and then you put it in her notes. Patient didn't know therapeutic bite. Work with her for about 10 minutes, trying to get her to learn how to do the exercises correctly. So nose therapeutic bite position, if you have to circle no, we got a problem. If they don't go into the best place for their jaw joints, they're not going to heal. And the bite on the appliance that I gave them puts both of their right and left temporomandibular joints into very nice bite positions, and they will heal. Anytime the patient cannot find the therapeutic bite, you must print out TMD exercise 1, give the printout to the patient, and give the patient a hand mirror. Review the exercise with the patient. So make sure that you spend a little time. The patient didn't do well. They flunked. And if your child flunks math, you're going to start working with the child, right? I hope. The patient is then ordered to repeat this exercise 4 to 6 times a day until the next visit. because she didn't get the therapeutic bite. She's not in there all the time. Patients often bite into their old pathological, means really bad, pathology is bad. Patients often bite into their old pathological bite and then slide into the therapeutic bite. So they kind of know it, but they haven't memorized it, and they're not going there all the time. This is really bad. It causes patients to grind their teeth on the mora. And they'll just grind, and come in and say they got pain. And the reason they have pain because they're not putting their teeth into the therapeutic bite, so they're getting irritated with the appliance. This problem of not knowing the therapeutic bite is more common in older patients who have more difficulty with their movements and they need more help. They don't know where they're biting down into. They got to do the exercise more. And as soon as you see they don't know the therapeutic bite, this is the whole basis of our therapy. Do you understand? I'm putting them into the therapeutic bite so they will heal. If they don't go into the therapeutic bite, they will not heal. If you see they're not going into the therapeutic bite, then you're not making sure that they're going to heal, and that's your job to make sure they heal. So therefore, you work with them again and again and again if needed. You also document it that you worked with the patient, showing that you care and you love the patient, you want them to get better. I mean, this is a whole system that you need to participate in and take charge of so that when problems occur, you correct them. I would like for you to be the best dental assistant in the world, and honestly, you're protecting me and the patient so that I have a wonderful day instead of saying, where are my models? So I can't determine where the therapeutic bite is because you didn't pull the models out the day before and put them on the counter. And then, unfortunately, this makes for a very stressful POHG appointment. So the day before they're all pulled, and the next morning, all of the TMD patient models are the next morning, the day after, are returned to the laboratory in the back building for storage. And so you're pulling them back and forth, and one of the reasons is we need those models to see where the therapeutic bite is. And of course, you've got a construction bite, a therapeutic wax construction bite, which also tells us we can put that in the person's mouth, have her bite down into that, and we can see the actual therapeutic bite in the patient's mouth with the wax bite. But we use the models to figure out what's going on. When we refer a patient to physical therapy, we require that patient to go to physical therapy. The head and the neck, the jaw joint and the neck are interrelated, meaning that sometimes if there's a neck problem, the jaw problem won't get better. I actually get referrals occasionally from other specialists, and guess what? Very often the only difference between myself and the other specialists is that I believe that neck care gets people better, and when we get the neck care done, they do get better. So the date next to the PT is the date that we're referred to PT. We actually made the referral. So in other words, there is a referral sheet that was filled out, and on there is a date of referral. That's the date that's placed in there. Your job is to ensure that they go to physical therapy. So our protocol requires that at 6 weeks, most TMD patients are referred to a certified, meaning they know what they're doing, not just any physical therapist, but a certified TMD physical therapist for cervical or neck treatment. That's what they treat for us. They don't treat the TMD. And we don't send them prior to 6 weeks because a lot of patients will wear the hard guard, the mora, and they get better. Their neck gets better spontaneously, bang, from just wearing our appliance. Cervical problems can make TMD problems worse and vice versa. So if you've got a TMD problem, it'll make your neck bad. If you've got a neck problem, it'll make your TMD bad. So we do refer. And again, we refer at 6 weeks. And then what we do is say, are you happy with the physical therapy? And really, we probably should just evaluate their neck to see if they're getting better or not. Many patients do much better after having their physical therapy. And when they refuse to go to physical therapy, we get into trouble because they later accuse us, pointing fingers at you and me, saying that we suck and they never went to physical therapy. And we finally get them to go to physical therapy, they get better, oh my God. And that happens a lot. So the PT date is the date that the patient was referred to physical therapy by myself and by you, you filled out the physical therapy prescription. If the patient refused or just did not comply, then the patient may not make good progress and may later blame Dr. Podolsky and you. It's really important to check to see if the patient complied with the dentist's orders to go to physical therapy. Very important. There must be a date in there after 6 weeks, and you must ask, are you happy with the physical therapy? And if they didn't go, it needs to be recorded that they're non-compliant. Later, when we go to court, we'll clearly show that they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Now, the next part of the form goes over the date of the DSG, Deliver Soft Guard. And a lot of times we'll do what we call a 6-week program for a regular patient who doesn't have a major TMD problem. And that's what we call the 6-week program. And you should really read the 6-week program handout. And we give that to even regular TMD patients. But we like to know what was the date that the soft guard was delivered. That's an actual date that's filled in. DSG stands for Deliver Soft Guard. The morning before the pre-appointment account review, during the pre-appointment account review, the staff member doing the review opens the TMD patient's Dentrix ledger and writes the date shown on for the Deliver Soft Guard appointment in this space provided for the DSG date. She then counts the weeks since the date shown for the Deliver Soft Guard and then circles the number of weeks since the DSG date. And she'd circle NA if it's past 6 weeks, because typically that's not a soft guard patient, that's a TMD patient. A TMD patient usually been referred to us, has bad headaches and bad problems, and we're taking care of them in an extensive manner over 6 months. If the patient is a soft guard only patient, the patient's treatment ends at 6 weeks. And this is really important because we don't guarantee or give free service after 6 weeks for soft guard patients. We do, however, for regular TMD patients, go up to half a year. And if there are 52 weeks in a year, there are 26 weeks in a half year, and a patient gets 26 weeks of not free, but prepaid care or free care. If this is a full TMD case, circle NA if it's been over 6 weeks and the patient is now wearing the hard guard. If you are trained to do TMD and you're a certified TMD assistant, you make all TMD appointments. Do not bring them to the front and dump them off. All TMD appointments are only scheduled, only means only, only one person, just one person, by a qualified trained TMD assistant at the end of each TMD visit. These front office people tend to screw up and put wrong appointments in at wrong times all the time, and they just don't understand. They'll put a POHG in the wrong column, they'll put in a doctor's surgery column. They're told not to put it at the end on Thursday because we do surgery on them, but they still do it. You know how to schedule. You're an assistant. You schedule. This is all a prepaid patient, so you make the appointments, not the front office. Don't dump TMD patients off at the front and ask for an appointment to be scheduled. That is a huge no-no. And you schedule it at the end of each TMD visit. So all TMD appointments are only scheduled by a qualified trained TMD assistant at the end of each TMD visit. The patient is never passed on to a front office staff member who can possibly screw up this patient's TMD treatment. They don't know anything about TMD. They don't know what the next appointment is. They don't know the requirements for that. You do it. TMD patients have also prepaid for all their TMD care, with the exception of paying for cancellations, no-show, no-calls, and same-day cancel appointments. So they almost never have to be brought to the front desk for collections. If they do have a purple sheet, yeah, got to go to the front desk. But most of the time, that's not true. Before allowing the TMD patient out of the dental chair, schedule the next appointment and always give the patient an Atlanta TMD Institute business card with the date and time written on the back of the card. I want to repeat and reiterate and really drill this into you. You make the appointment at the end of the TMD appointment. You give the patient a card, business card, written on the back, the date of the appointment, the time of the appointment, and the patient's name. I just said three things. I hope you remember it, right? The date of the appointment, the time of the appointment, and the patient's full name. And it's written on the back, not of a regular card, but an Atlanta TMD Institute business card. This is your responsibility. Don't screw it up. Really, really important. I don't want you to pass it off to other people. And a lot of times having these cards is a good thing because they'll give the card to a friend. And that happens. It may not happen a whole lot of times, but it might happen twice a year. And that means we'll get 2 new patients because you gave that patient an Atlanta TMD Institute business card. Plus, when the patient walks in the wrong time, which does happen, you say, well, let me see the card. And they pull the card out, and lo and behold, today is not the date that's shown on the card. And it gives the patient the understanding that you didn't make the mistake, the patient did. This happens particularly in older patients. One of the important marketing things, marketing means go to market. Marketing means, it's not advertising when you pay for things. Marketing is when you do the same thing, but you don't have to pay. So you give out every single appointment a new NEW card to the patient. On the back of the card, you write the day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the time, 10 a.m., 2 p.m., whatever time it might be. You give that to the patient. The patient keeps this card. This card protects your butt. I don't know how to stress to you the potential argument, emotional thing that might happen when someone from Alabama drives all the way in at the wrong time. And they're going to blame you. They're going to point their finger at you and say, you're an idiot. You lied. You told her this was the day. And they're going to really believe in their heart that they're true. This is true, that you lied. And it's going to be emotional. But if you say, well, let me see the card I gave you to see if I screwed up pretty bad. And then they'll reach in their bag. There will be the card. They'll flip it over, and you will be correct. Is that not wonderful? However, if you don't give them the card, it's your word against their word, and they will hold it against you. This is just the way it is. You have to protect yourself. But even more importantly is, each time you give that patient a card, every single time, maybe 12, 15, 20 times in 6 months, they keep a card. And there is a potential, not with every single patient, but a potential that the patient will give this card to another person suffering with headaches. But if they don't have a card, they're just going to mention my name, and most likely the person they recommend me to is going to forget. I mean, how often do I forget things? I'll hear something on the radio, I want to do it, and Lord Almighty, I don't, because I forgot. But having business cards in their pocketbook, very often they'll hand the business card, their friend will keep it, and they may go weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, more, before they actually give us a call, or they put it in their drawer, and a year later they remember, oh, I'm having headaches, Betty told me about this, let me go get that card I put in my drawer. So always give them a card. Now let's read this card, because you need to understand I have several different cards. And here we go. Mark A. Podolsky with not all my credentials. You should know my credentials down because you work for me, you mark it for me. And it's temporomandibular disorders treatment. And it says 1624, but it should be 1640, right? Isn't that a mistake? And it has our correct telephone number, 404-876-8123. Email is my personal email, and we are going to try to change this. You'll notice on the bottom here, this is incorrect. It says atlantatmjdentist.com. That's an old website. We actually now have www.atlantatmdinstitute.com. So things are changing. Things are getting wonderful. But I want to point out to you, this is a TMD card. It is a TMD card. I used to be a general dentist. I am no longer a general dentist. I don't do general dentistry. I haven't done a filling in over 20 years. I don't do fillings. Sometimes you'll see me do front teeth that are fractured on a Saturday, but that's it, man. And even then, I'd like to get out of doing that. I do not do general dentistry. That's extremely important that you fully, completely, 100% understand this, because you will screw up if you don't. There are two cards here that are not the right cards. I don't want to say you're going to get fired for doing this, but it would be a serious mother mistake to give these cards to TMD patients. It's wrong for you to do that. You're trying to harm me if you do it. Don't do it. Why? If you have a boyfriend and your girlfriend is a lech and you ask her to help out while you go to a funeral, there's a possibility she's going to go after your boyfriend. And that would be rotten. And when a dentist refers his or her patient to me, I cannot steal his food. I cannot do the work that he does because he is this patient's dentist. He referred the patient to me with some trust that I would not steal his income, his money. Can you imagine if I went into your paycheck and took out $100 without your permission? You'd be pissed. And basically, general dentists don't want me stealing from them. The Atlanta TMD Institute is not the Atlanta Dental Group. They're two separate legal entities. And we're trying to get away from this Atlanta Dental Group thing. So please do not ever put these cards, these cosmetic dentistry cards or general dentistry cards ever. You have to look with your eyeballs and make sure that that things are not screwed up. Very important that you don't give these cards to the patient. Dentists may see it and get mad and just never send us another patient. That has happened. It has actually happened. He's not going to send. I'm not going to. One guy, his first name is Paige. He said, "I'm not going to send you any patients. You're going to steal them." And he actually thought that about me, and I would never do that. I would never ever do that. But he didn't want to send me any patients, so I'll starve. So don't make me starve. Don't give these cards out, please. Only the TMD cards. DHG stands for Deliver Hard Guard. The Hard Guard is the actual TMD, temporomandibular disorder treatment appliance used to treat temporomandibular disorders. Dr. Podolsky has a step-by-step, week-by-week protocol. We do specific things at specific times. So Dr. Podolsky has a step-by-step, week-by-week protocol where specific things are done on specific weeks, some of which are massively legal. And if you screw up and don't put a DHG date and the number of weeks since then, we could commit malpractice, and it's your problem. You did it. Don't you dare say someone else did it, because you're trained now. You know that at 13 or 14 weeks, we wean the patient. You know that. So if I look at the form and I don't see week counted and you start blaming other people, I feel real bad, because you're supposed to be in charge of this. And you're basically pawning it off to other people, and you can't do that because you're the professional. You are the one helping the patient. You care about that patient. If the doctor does not know what week it is, he cannot provide excellent TMD care. Let's be real. To avoid this problem, the TMD patient evaluation of phase 1 treatment progress report has an area to show the number of weeks that have passed since the hard guard was delivered to the patient. And this is your responsibility, because you are trained now. You're listening to the video. You see patient one after the other every day, sometimes 6 or 8 TMD patients each day. You know the protocol. You enforce the protocol. You know the sheet. This whole thing is related to the sheet and that visit so that you don't screw up and make mistakes and you don't let other people around you make mistakes because you really care. You're kind of like the coach. And when people screw up, the coach fixes it so the team wins. This is perhaps one of the most important parts of this form of the TMD patient evaluation of phase 1 treatment progress form. This is an important area right here. Unfortunately, it is one of the areas that dental assistants fall down in, and they create problems for the doctor, and they don't feel responsible for their fellow staff. There is something called a protocol that at each visit we do something for the patient, dependent upon how many weeks the patient has been treated. So the first thing is, you can notice it says DHG. This is the delivery hard guard appointment. It's the date of the appointment. This is the clock of the 26 weeks begins with the DHG. And you'll see that in the patient's ledger. So in the ledger, you will see an appointment, deliver hard guard. And that date is put into this slot for the date. And then it's just simple. You count week by week. You can use a calendar or you can do it in your head. And then the number of weeks since the DHG. We provide we provide 6 months of paid free, it's not free, they pay prepaid for it, 26 weeks of care. What's really interesting is very few staff understand this. So they understand that if you buy a car and you have a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty, after that warranty, you no longer get free things. Everybody understands that. You know, you buy a refrigerator and it has a 1-year warranty, and 2 years later it busts. You got to buy a new refrigerator or have this one repaired. However, for some reason in my practice, we have problems because I only provide 26 weeks of free care. That's it. After that, they have to pay. So you got to look every single visit. How many weeks has it been since the DHG? Is it 30? If it's 30, there's a charge. It's past the warranty, the 26-week warranty period of time. So we provide 6 months or a half year of TMD treatment as part of all of our all-inclusive prepaid TMD package. It's a good deal. Seriously, if they had to pay weekly or per visit, it would be more expensive. There are 52 weeks in the year and 26 weeks in the half year. So 26 weeks is a half year or 6 months. And those are the 26 numbers that you see on the top. These numbers stand for the weeks since the deliver hard guard appointment. All right, you just count since the hard guard appointment, not since TMD treatment began. So they came in, got a consult. Their 26 weeks doesn't start at the consult. They came in, they got impressions, and had an EEX or complete examination. No, we do not start at the complete exam. When do we start? We start after the deliver hard guard appointment, DHG. The morning before, during the pre-appointment account review, the staff member doing the review opens the patient's Dentrix ledger and records the date of the DHG in the date area. Now, this is done the day before by another staff member, not by the TMD assistant. Holy mackerel. I had a falling out and a walkout just the other day because after 3 weeks of working with a new assistant who I was attempting to train, she failed completely in almost 2 weeks, several times, numerous times, to fill this out. And she did not feel responsible for the other staff members, which means that, you know, if you're in charge of the patient, you're the doctor's personal assistant, and he's got to have this system, then he doesn't know where he is if someone hasn't counted out the weeks, because we do different things at different times during the 26 weeks. The 14th week has an underline. It's an extremely legal week. We have to do something called weaning. So in other words, by law, if we do not wean the patient from the appliance or attempt to wean, we're committing malpractice. Now, can you imagine if a form is given to me and there's no DHG and all the numbers are up there and the 14th week is not circled, so I don't know if I have to wean? So then I violate standards of care and I'm in trouble. And she just never understood this. She would not take responsibility for what other people were doing wrong. Isn't that crazy? So if it's your wedding and the caterer is screwing up, you just let the caterer screw up? Or do you like complain and get the caterer to do a job properly? Oh, come on. You're going to make sure in your wedding that things are going to go well. You're not just going to let everything get screwed up because you care about your wedding. And the same thing is true of this particular form. I use this form every day, 4, 5, 6 times a day. So I expect it to be filled out. So then the morning before, she goes into the patient Dentrix ledger, looks at the DHG date, and then counts the number of weeks since the DHG, and then circles the correct number. So she then counts the numbers of weeks since the DHG date, and then circles the correct number, indicating this number of weeks, so I know what's going on. I have blown up the numbers of certain weeks after the DHG. We record the DHG date and we count. The numbers 1, 6, 14, 23, and 26 are critical dates, meaning something has to be done at these dates. If the doctor doesn't know how many weeks that have progressed, he cannot make these very important decisions about week 1, week 6, week 14, week 23, and week 26. Therefore, you must always have this filled out. If the pre-appointment staff member is incompetent and didn't fill it out, oh my Lord, let's pray together because we have a problem. And actually you do, because you're responsible as the TMD assistant for this form. Therefore, you must take responsibility for reprimanding this incompetent employee who doesn't want to help us out. You shouldn't just do it. So in other words, patients being seated and there's no circle on any of these numbers, you then must calculate the numbers immediately. You notice the problem, fix it, so the doctor can do the care. Then go back to the office manager, talk with the office manager and say, listen, this employee that you're paying too much. She's not doing her work. She did not prepare this form the day before. And you do this because you care about Dr. P and the patient, because Dr. P cannot provide good care without this filled out. I just don't know how much to emphasize this. So again, I've blown these numbers up abnormally to show you the critical weeks. Most of the TMD patients' TMD treatment is centered on the use of the mandibular orthopedic repositioning appliance, which is abbreviated the MORA, which in our office we often refer to as the hard guard. It's just easier. There is a step-by-step protocol for TMD treatment such that at different weeks after the hard guard has been delivered to the patient, different things are evaluated. I take a look at people. How am I doing? Like at 14 weeks, we have to see, are we doing okay? We're midpoint now, and did we do good? And if we haven't, let's kick in. We need to really get this patient better, So I have to know when half of the football game's over and the half is going to start, right? As the attending dental assistant, You must ensure, and that's insurance, to ensure that nothing is missing and that the patient gets the full, entire needed care based upon the number of weeks and at the appropriate times. This is very important. This means that you must take note of how many weeks that this patient has been wearing the hard guard at each and every TMD visit. This form has to be filled out. You need to say, what's up? What do I got to do? And like at visit 6, we typically do physical therapy. And you might have the referral form for the physical therapy at 6 weeks out and ready so Dr. P doesn't have to ask. Isn't that wonderful? Now you're an awesome dental assistant because you're thinking, you're using your brain, and as a team, you're making the whole process of treating patients easier and less aggravating. It's extremely difficult when I have to continually beg staff to just do their simple jobs, and then you say, well, Dr. P, you're degrading. I'm not degrading. The people who are doing the job are degrading themselves because they're not doing their work. This is extremely important, and you can see the aggravation in my voice.